What is going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Pit. Today we are ranking the best storylines from 2020. At number 5, The Fiend's new friend Alexa Bliss joins Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt's feud with Braun Strowman over the Universal Championship on SmackDown had its moments, but in the end it wasn't as compelling as fans hoped it would be despite their history together in the Wyatt family. In fact, the only point this program got truly interesting was when Alexa Bliss got involved following Extreme Rules. WWE has taken its time telling the story of Bliss slowly embracing the Fiend and turning to the dark side. Her transformation into a friend of the Fiend is all but complete, as seen on this past week's Raw, when she appeared in the Firefly Funhouse and startled former tag team partner Nikki Cross with her evil eyes later in the night. Regardless of whether she's been a heel or babyface, Bliss has basically been the same character for the last few years. Joining forces with The Fiend has forced her to switch it up and become something completely different. So far, it's been a breath of fresh air. That goes for The Fiend as well. He hasn't had a ton of character development dating back to the debut of Wyatt's alter ego in the summer 2019, and thus he's benefiting from having a fresh face associated with his act. Coming out of the 2020 WWE Draft, the duo now find themselves on the Raw roster, and already they've made their presence felt in the WWE Championship picture. At number 4, A Fractured Friendship. Bayley betrays Sasha Banks. Only a handful of superstars can be credited with carrying WWE programming through their first few months of the crowdless pandemic era, and Sasha Banks and Bayley are among those elite few. They started this year as partners who went on to capture the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship for a second time in June. During their 2-month reign, they defended the titles multiple times, sometimes in the same week, and appeared on all 3 of WWE's biggest brands. Banks also played a pivotal role in Bayley remaining SmackDown Women's Champion for as long as she did. Once the duo dropped the tag titles in late August, Bayley deemed Banks useless and kicked her to the curb by brutally attacking her out of nowhere on an episode of SmackDown. Bayley's initial ambush on Banks was so intense that their first match should have been saved for down the line. WWE rushing this rivalry is why it doesn't rank higher on this list, but it's also been a recurring highlight on Friday nights for months now, and it isn't over yet. This was the feud that fans had waited years to see from these two, and they did not disappoint. At number 3, Getting the Girl, Otis pursues Mandy Rose and the demise of Fire and Desire. Otis has been expressing interest in Mandy Rose long before their storyline started on SmackDown last December. The former Heavy Machinery member had been attempting to win Rose over as far back as their NXT days, so it was an organic angle that made all the sense in the world to do on TV. Coming into the new year, Otis and Mandy interacted on almost every episode of SmackDown. It eventually led to Otis asking Mandy out on a date on Valentine's Day, but before Otis could make it, Dolph Ziggler swooped in and attempted to win Mandy over first. The payoff with Otis getting the girl and locking lips with her following his defeat of Ziggler was the definition of a WrestleMania moment. A rowdy crowd going wild for it, and giving the two of them the reaction they deserved is the only thing that would have made it better. Everything culminated at SummerSlam when Mandy put down Deville once and for all by beating her in a loser leaves WWE match. Unfortunately, the aftermath has been less than stellar, with Rose transitioning into another tag team with Dana Brooke and Otis losing the Money in the Bank briefcase, but those first 8 months of the angle were outstanding. At number 2, Return of the Legend Killer, Randy Orton targets Edge and other icons. Orton felt like just another guy on the Raw roster at this time a year ago, but his betrayal of Edge one night removed from his former tag team partner's return to the ring at the Royal Rumble marking a major turning point for him. From that point forward, he's been doing some of the strongest work of his entire career, specifically on the mic. Although the Last Man Standing matchup failed to meet the lofty expectations of the most, the two were determined to not lose that momentum. Orton won the heavily touted rematch at Backlash, which was a vast improvement over their original encounter, and then he was back to being the Legend Killer again. In the remainder of the summer, Orton punted the likes of Christian, Shawn Michaels, Big Show, and Ric Flair in the head and put them on the shelf. Each of these attacks were more emotional than the last, and solidified Orton as the biggest bad guy in the business. Orton wound up winning the WWE Championship from Drew McIntyre at Hell in a Cell, but the time to do was at SummerSlam when he was at the peak of his push. Either way, without Orton, Raw in 2020 would have looked a lot different and likely would have been much worse. And at number 1, All in the Family, Jey Uso steps up to Roman Reigns. Had you said 6 months ago that Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso would be the best thing to come out of 2020 for WWE, no one would have believed you. However, That's exactly what happened thanks to the phenomenal performances of both Reigns and Uso, and with the way they've told their story over the past 2 months. It would have been easy for Reigns to resurface at SummerSlam as the same stagnant character he had been for years. Instead, he completely reinvented himself by partnering up with Paul Heyman and turning heel for the first time on his own since joining WWE's main roster in 2012. He wasted no time in capturing the Universal title and cementing his spot as SmackDown's top dog. They were the plethora of popular babyfaces who could have challenged Reigns for the title, but no one expected his cousin, Jey Uso, to be the first to step up and square off, considering he had been inactive with his brother, Jimmy, on the shelf. Jey remained in hot pursuit of Reigns' title heading into the Hell in a Cell, where they waged war in an I Quit Hell in a Cell match. That top spot was captivating on so many levels and saw Jey put up a great fight before falling into Reigns. For the stipulation of the bout, Jey now has to follow every one of Reigns' orders, so his heel alliance with Reigns should be fun to follow in the weeks and months ahead. Reigns went from dragging down SmackDown a year ago in his feud with King Corbin to now carrying the show with Jey, and the best may be yet to come. Well guys, that's going to wrap it up for this video of WWE Pit. If you enjoyed, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see your beautiful faces in the next video. Have a fantastic day.